Imagine it's 1914. A single gunshot in Sarajevo echoes across Europe, igniting a firestorm that will engulf the entire world. This isn't a story of heroes and glory. This is the story of the Great War, World War I, and the grim reality that shattered a generation. Before 1914, war was often romanticized, a matter of cavalry charges and noble duels. But this new conflict was different. It was a war of machines, of industry, and of unprecedented slaughter. Millions of men, many just boys, were swept up in a wave of patriotism and enlisted, believing they'd be home by Christmas. They couldn't have been more wrong. Their destination was the Western Front, a hellish landscape stretching for over 400 miles from the Swiss border to the North Sea. Here, they would live, fight, and die in a labyrinth of trenches. Let's paint a picture of life in these ditches. The first thing that would hit you is to smell a sickening mix of rotting corpses, unwashed bodies, stagnant mud, and the lingering odor of poison gas. The trenches were rarely dry. Soldiers stood for weeks in knee-deep water, leading to a condition called trench foot. Their feet would swell, turn blue, and become numb. In severe cases, it led to gangrene and amputation. It was a constant, miserable ache. Then there were the pests. Rats, grown fat on human remains, were everywhere. Lice were an even greater nuisance, burrowing into uniforms and skin, causing an unbearable itch and spreading a disease known as trench fever. Daily life was a monotonous cycle of dread. A soldier's day might start before dawn with stand to, a period of high alert against an enemy attack. After that, it was a routine of repairing the trench, cleaning rifles, writing letters home, and trying to find a moment of sleep. But sleep was a luxury, constantly interrupted by the thunder of artillery shells. The psychological pressure was immense. The constant threat of death, the sight of friends being killed, and the never-ending noise created a condition we now call shell shock, but what we recognize today as post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. Soldiers would suffer from uncontrollable shaking, nightmares, and an inability to speak or move. At the time, many were dismissed as cowards, but the sheer number of cases forced military authorities to acknowledge this invisible wound of war. The mental toll was just as devastating as the physical injuries. And what happened when they were ordered over the top? Imagine a whistle blowing in the dim light of dawn. You climb a ladder, bayonet fixed, and charge into no man's land, the desolate, crater-filled ground between your trench and the enemy's. You run through a storm of machine gun bullets that could fire 600 rounds a minute. You navigate tangled webs of barbed wire designed to snag you and make you an easy target. All around you, the ground erupts from artillery shells, throwing earth, shrapnel, and bodies into the air. The battles of World War I were defined by this industrial scale of death. At the Battle of the Somme in 1916, the British Army suffered nearly 60,000 casualties on the very first day. The battle raged for months, and by the end, over 1 million men from all sides were killed or wounded. The Battle of Verdun, another meat grinder, lasted for almost a year, with casualties approaching 1 million as well. These numbers are almost impossible to comprehend. Entire towns lost their young men. A generation was wiped out. This was also the first war to see the widespread use of chemical weapons. Chlorine gas, first used by the Germans, would suffocate its victims, burning their lungs from the inside. Phosgene gas was even more deadly, though its effects were often delayed. But the most feared was mustard gas. It caused horrific blisters on the skin, in the eyes, and in the respiratory tract. It didn't always kill, but it left victims with lifelong pain and suffering. Crude gas masks were developed, but they were often unreliable and terrifying to wear. The war wasn't just fought on the Western Front. From the icy mountains of the Italian Alps to the deserts of the Middle East and the vast plains of Eastern Europe, men fought and died in equally brutal conditions. The war at sea introduced submarine warfare, which brought the conflict to civilian populations in a new and terrifying way. Back home, life was also transformed. Women entered the workforce in unprecedented numbers, taking on jobs in factories and on farms to support the war effort. They built the shells and the guns that were being used on the front lines, but the home front was not safe from the war's sorrow. Every day, families would wait for the mail, dreading the sight of a telegram that began with the words, "We regret to inform you." The emotional cost of the war rippled through every community. When the armistice was finally signed on November 11, 1918, the world was left to count the cost. Over 16 million people, both soldiers and civilians, were dead. Another 20 million were wounded. Empires had crumbled, maps were redrawn, and the world was fundamentally changed. The survivors returned home not as glorious heroes, but as broken men. They were called the Lost Generation because they had lost their youth, their innocence, and their faith in the world they once knew. The grim reality of World War I serves as a powerful and haunting reminder of the true cost of conflict. It stripped away the romantic notions of warfare and exposed it for what it is, a brutal, dehumanizing, and catastrophic event. The stories from the trenches, the letters from the soldiers, and the stark black and white photographs from the era are not just history. They are a warning about where nationalism, political failure, and industrialized violence can lead. By understanding the suffering and sacrifice of that generation, we honor their memory and reinforce our own commitment to finding peaceful solutions to conflict. The echoes of the Great War are still with us today, reminding us to never forget the price that was paid in the mud and blood of the trenches. If you or anyone you know is struggling with mental health, please remember that support is available. Reaching out to a crisis hotline or a mental health professional is a sign of strength. You are not alone. Thank you for watching. If you found this video insightful, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into history. Let us know in the comments what other historical events you'd like us to cover. See you next time.